In this episode, we are going to make a group of Windows tools feel much more manageable by giving each one a clear job in your mind. Many beginners open one console after another because they know the answer must be somewhere, but they are not yet sure which tool is meant to answer which kind of question. That can make Windows support feel harder than it really is. The truth is that most of these tools are not competing with each other. They are looking at different parts of the same computer. Once you learn what each tool is best at revealing, you stop wandering and start asking better questions. That is a big part of becoming a good technician. You do not need to know everything at once. You need to know which console gives you the kind of clue you need for the problem in front of you. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is part of our companion study series. The first book is a detailed study guide that explains the exam and helps you prepare for it with confidence. The second is a Kindle-only ebook with 1,000 flashcards you can use on your mobile device or Kindle for quick review. You can find both at Cyber.Me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good way to think about Windows tools is to divide them by the kind of answer they give. Some tools tell you what is happening right now on the system. Some tell you what happened earlier and was recorded for later review. Some show how hardware is being seen by the operating system, OS. Some show how storage is arranged. Others show background parts of the system that keep Windows working even when the user does not see them directly. This is where Microsoft Management Console, MMC, becomes useful as an idea, because many administrative tools fit into a common style that helps technicians work in a more organized way. If you remember nothing else at first, remember this simple rule. Slow down, decide what kind of answer you need, and then choose the console that is designed to reveal that answer instead of opening tools at random. Task Manager is often the first place beginners learn, and that makes sense because it is one of the clearest windows into what the computer is doing right now. If a system feels slow, if an app is frozen, or if the machine seems busy for no obvious reason, Task Manager is a strong starting point because it shows active work in the moment. It can reveal which apps are open, which background processes are using resources, and whether the central processing unit, CPU, random access memory, RAM, storage, or network activity is under pressure. That makes it very useful for questions like why the system feels sluggish or whether one program is causing a visible slowdown. A beginner should think of Task Manager as the console for current behavior. It helps answer what the system is busy doing now, not what the system might have done yesterday or what deep setting changed last week. Task Manager is also helpful because it can show patterns that users often describe in vague ways. A user may say the computer freezes all the time, but Task Manager may show that one specific app keeps using too much memory or that the system becomes overloaded whenever several browser tabs and a meeting app run together. It can also show whether many items try to start when the computer boots, which helps explain why startup feels slow even when the machine seems fine later in the day. At the same time, beginners should not expect Task Manager to explain every problem by itself. It may show that the system is under strain, but it may not explain why a driver failed earlier, why a service will not start, or why a device is missing. Task Manager is powerful when the question is about present activity. It is less useful when the problem is more about history, configuration, or hardware recognition. This is where MMC becomes easier to understand. MMC is not one single magic troubleshooting tool that fixes everything. It is more like a common frame that can hold focused administrative tools, often called snap-ins, so that technicians can work with different parts of Windows in a consistent way. That may sound more complicated than it really is, so keep the idea simple. Instead of every tool looking completely different, many Windows administrative consoles share a similar style that helps you move through system information in a structured way. For beginners, the value of MMC is mostly mental. It reminds you that Windows support is not one giant screen with every answer mixed together. It is a set of focused views. Each one looks at a different layer of the computer, and that makes support cleaner because you can go straight to the view that matches your question. One of the most useful places where that organized style comes together is computer management. This console is helpful because it brings several important administrative areas into one general hub. If you are not yet sure whether the problem is more about hardware, storage, background services, or logged events, computer management can be a good place to begin because it lets you look across several system areas without jumping all over Windows. It does not replace the deeper tools inside it, but it helps you see the big picture more easily. A beginner can think of computer management as a practical doorway into Windows support. Instead of memorizing every separate path at first, you can remember that this console gathers important system views in one place. That is useful when you need to get oriented and decide what kind of problem you are actually dealing with before you go deeper. Device Manager is one of the clearest tools for answering a very specific question. Does Windows see this hardware? And does it appear to understand what it is? That makes Device Manager especially useful when a printer is not recognized, a wireless adapter seems missing, audio stops working, or some other device does not behave as expected. A beginner should think of Device Manager as the hardware recognition console. It helps reveal whether the OS sees a device, whether there appears to be a problem with its driver support, and whether the system views that piece of hardware as healthy or troubled. This is important because many users describe hardware problems in very broad terms. They may say the internet is broken when the real issue is that the wireless device is not functioning correctly. Device Manager helps narrow the problem by showing whether the hardware layer itself looks normal before you chase other possible causes. At the same time, Device Manager has limits, and understanding those limits is part of using it well. If a laptop cannot reach a website, Device Manager might show that the network hardware is present and healthy, but that does not prove the entire connection path is working. In that case, the hardware may be fine while the problem lives somewhere else in the network or in a setting outside the device itself. The same is true with audio, storage devices, or external equipment. Device Manager is best at telling you whether Windows recognizes the hardware and whether the driver relationship appears normal. It is not the best tool for explaining every behavior that happens after the device is already recognized. That is why technicians improve when they stop asking one tool to answer every question. Device Manager is the right choice when you need to confirm the hardware layer, not when you need a full explanation of everything the user is experiencing. Disk management is another console that becomes much easier to use when you give it a simple purpose. Disk management is there to show how storage is arranged and presented to Windows. It helps reveal things like partitions, volumes, drive letters, and whether a storage device is visible to the system in a usable way. This makes it a strong tool when a new drive does not appear the way the user expected, when a system has storage layout questions, or when you need to understand how Windows sees the structure of the disk. A beginner should think of disk management as the storage layout console. It is not mainly about file recovery or about what is stored inside folders. It is about how the drive is divided, labeled, and made available to the system. That distinction matters because many storage problems begin before the user ever gets to the level of browsing files. Disk management is especially useful because storage issues can be confusing when the hardware seems physically present but the space is not behaving the way the user expects. A drive may be connected and powered, yet still not appear as a normal place to save files because the layout is incomplete or the system has not assigned it in the way the user expects. This console helps reveal that kind of mismatch. It can show whether space is available, whether the system sees the drive at all, and how the storage is organized from the OS point of view. But again, beginners should not ask it to do everything. Disk management is not the first place to look for why a document was deleted or why one folder is slow to open. It answers structural storage questions. When the question is about how Windows sees the disk itself, this is the right console to open. Event Viewer is a very important tool, but it can intimidate beginners because it contains a great deal of recorded information. The best way to keep it simple is to remember that Event Viewer is for history. It records things the system chose to log, such as startup problems, service issues, certain hardware events, and other important system activity. That makes it useful when the question is not what the computer is doing right now, but what happened earlier when the problem occurred. If a machine restarted unexpectedly during the night, if a feature keeps failing after boot, or if something breaks at a certain time and then appears normal later, Event Viewer may contain clues that Task Manager never could. It gives you a record to look back on. For a beginner, that is the main value. It is the console you use when you need evidence from the system's memory of events, not just a live picture of the current moment. The challenge with Event Viewer is that not every recorded event matters equally, and that is where beginners can get overwhelmed. A long list of warnings and information items does not automatically mean the computer is in serious trouble. Windows records many things, and some of them are only useful in context. The skill is not reading every line and assuming the worst. The skill is matching the timing and type of event to the problem you are trying to understand. If a user says the system freezes every morning, you care most about what was happening around that time and whether a pattern repeats. Event Viewer helps technicians move beyond guessing by showing that something actually happened and when it happened. It is not the console for quick live performance checks. It is the console for building a timeline when the computer's past behavior matters more than its current appearance. Services is another core console that beginners should know because many important parts of Windows run quietly in the background as services rather than as visible desktop apps. A user may never notice them until one stops working, and then a feature that seemed simple suddenly fails. Printing, updates, networking support, security functions, and many other parts of Windows depend on background services starting and running correctly. The Services console is best when the question is whether a needed background function exists, whether it is running, and how it is set to start. A beginner can think of it as the background operations view. If a user-facing feature is missing or unreliable, the visible app may not be the real problem. The deeper issue may be that a service underneath it is stopped, misbehaving, or not set to begin the way the system expects. Services is valuable because it teaches a beginner an important lesson about Windows. Not every problem lives in the part of the system the user can see. A computer can look normal on the desktop and still have a broken background function that causes updates to fail, printing to stall, or other system behavior to become inconsistent. The Services console helps reveal that hidden layer. At the same time, it should be used with care and thinking, because seeing a stopped service does not always mean the technician should panic. Some services start only when needed, while others must stay active for certain features to work well. The point for beginners is not to memorize every service. The point is to understand that this console helps answer whether the background support layer of Windows is available and behaving in the way the system expects for the task you are investigating. System information is often overlooked by new technicians, but it is very useful because it gathers facts about the computer in one place. When you need a clear picture of the machine's hardware, system details, and general configuration, this tool can help you confirm what is actually there instead of relying on guesswork or on what the user thinks they own. That matters because support gets easier when you work from facts. A user may describe a machine as new, fast, or upgraded, but the technician needs to know what hardware and configuration the system is actually reporting. System information helps reveal those details in a compact way. It is not mainly a live troubleshooting tool like Task Manager, and it is not a history tool like Event Viewer. It is best when you need a dependable overview of the machine's identity and setup before deciding what kind of problem is even possible on that system. Task Scheduler is another useful console because some problems happen on a schedule rather than during normal hands-on use. Windows can be set to run certain tasks automatically at startup, at login, at set times, or when other conditions occur. That means a user may report that the computer slows down every afternoon, that a cleanup task seems to run at odd times, or that some repeated action happens even though they never start it manually. Task Scheduler helps reveal that automated layer. For beginners, the main idea is simple. If something keeps happening on a pattern, there may be a scheduled task behind it. This console is not where you go first for a frozen app or a missing device. It is where you go when time-based or repeated system behavior needs an explanation. It helps answer whether Windows has been told to perform something automatically that now affects support in a visible way. When you step back and compare these tools, the big lesson is that each one is strongest when paired with the right question. If you need to know what is making the system busy right now, Task Manager is a strong first choice. If you need to know whether Windows sees a device properly, Device Manager is more useful. If you need to understand storage layout, Disk Management fits better. If you need to look backward at recorded system behavior, Event Viewer makes more sense. If a hidden background function may be the problem, Services is a better match. If something seems to happen on a repeating pattern, Task Scheduler may reveal the answer. And if you need a grounded overview of the machine or a broad starting point, System Information or Computer Management can help you get oriented. Good technicians are not the people who open the most consoles. They are the people who choose the right console first. By the end of this discussion, The main thing to remember is that Windows administrative tools become much less confusing when you stop treating them as one large pile of technical screens. Each one is built to reveal a certain layer of the system, and that is what makes them useful. Task Manager shows current activity. MMC provides a common frame for many administrative views. Computer Management helps you start from a broader system hub. Device Manager focuses on hardware recognition. Disk Management shows storage structure. Event Viewer gives you recorded history. Services shows background system functions. System Information gives a fact-based system overview. And Task Scheduler reveals repeated automatic actions. When beginners learn to connect each tool to the kind of question it answers best, Windows support becomes clearer, calmer, and much more effective. That is how you move from opening tools because they look important to opening them because they fit the problem.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.